Hey, I'm actually on the road sitting at a rest stop bullshitting. So if you hear any traffic noise, that's what it is.
No worries.
Taking a little break. How you doing, man?
I'm doing good, man. It's a very casual podcast, so no worries at all.
Awesome,
Where
awesome.
are you going?
I'm on my way up to Massachusetts to some like a big it's like a big expo thing they have every year. It's like
Oh yeah?
how places will have like county fairs and things. It's this huge one. So I'm on the way up there with a friend of mine.
What is it? I'm from Massachusetts.
Oh, it's called the Big E, the Big
Yeah, I
Expo or
know the
something.
Biggie.
Well, that's where I'm
Yeah, yeah,
going.
yeah.
I'm
Oh,
right now,
awesome.
right now I'm on 684 in Connecticut, right before getting on 84 to 91. So
Yep.
that whole thing. So yeah, that's where we are right now.
Yeah, I live in Central Mass, so
Okay, yeah, I didn't.
yeah, yeah.
I was wondering where you're from. So yeah, so that's where I'm going. I'm going to the Big E for a little visit today. So
Great place, man. I went I think a couple times as a kid, but like one of the biggest,
yep,
festivals, a lot of cool stuff there. Well, Michael, thanks for joining me, man.
absolutely, it's my pleasure, fam. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, and congrats on Hell's Heroes.
Thank
That's
you,
gonna
man.
be
Yeah,
awesome.
that's going to be fun. I mean, I've been wanting to get on that for a while, so it's kind of it's cool to finally get on that.
Yeah, a lot of great bands, man. I know Tank was on it last year, and it
Yeah,
was like their first time in like the US since like 86 or something. So
probably. Yeah, it's
a
been a long
lot
time.
of
Yeah,
great bands, man. And the God Particle's amazing.
awesome.
It's
Appreciate that.
it's definitely like the darkest and like heaviest record you guys have put out. Was this like a conscious decision by you guys?
No, not at all. I mean, the music was written that was written. Our singer Bobby wrote lyrically what he wrote. A lot of it does kind of reflect what's going on in the world, a little darker themes in that respect. But yeah, no real conscious thought, went into just it is what it is.
Yeah, I feel like every record you guys put out is just like so unique. Like it's definitely like every record almost can be from a different band.
Well, yeah, I always tell people that one of the reasons too is that throughout the years we've had different writers in the band. So from the first album, second album to the third and fourth, everything changes. So obviously, stylistically, except for having the same kind of vocalist and my drumming style, that's really the only common thread. But musically, yeah, different people write songs have written songs throughout the history. So it's going to change a little.
Yeah, how do you look at that? How do you look at your approach to songwriting from the debut record to the God Particle? How much has that evolved?
Well, again, because it's been different people, I don't think it's been a conscious evolution. It's just been the way people write.
Yeah.
One guy will write different than the other, and we still kind of have a certain thread that ties it together that's recognizable as Attacker, but not we never stayed the same technically. So
Yeah,
it's always progressed because I think mainly of different writers more than anything.
for sure. And you're definitely like the constant. You're like the Tony Iommi of this band,
I'm the Tony
where
Iommi, yeah.
you can move any other piece around, but as long as you're the constant.
Yeah, I have been the glue, I guess you could say, in that respect. Always the one, running the band basically and kind of just keeping it together when people left, whether on their own or we had to get them going. I was the guy that had to find the other person. So,
So when did you get into drumming originally?
I started late musically. Like I actually started playing drums at 19. I was always into music, but I originally started out wanting to be a keyboard player when I was in high school, and then I realized that number one, keyboard is way too much theory to learn that late, and somehow I don't even know how it was I gravitated to drums, but I'm glad I did because that's the one instrument. Like I could pick up a guitar and play some chords, but I could never be a guitar player. Just like I know guitar players that sit behind a drum set and they're like, I don't know how you do what you do. So we all gravitate to what naturally, I guess, is our gift.
Yeah, so that was after you got into metal, I assume. And like, was that the
Uh
inspiration to get into drumming, or was it like a
nah,
totally different reason?
I mean, true. I mean, even when I was trying to do the keyboard thing, I was into metal. But back then, that was when keyboards were a rock thing; they weren't necessarily a metal thing. So, I guess, in one sense, I mean, the funny thing is, back when I got into it and wanted to be a keyboard player, every guitar player wants to have a wall full of amps. I
Yeah.
wanted to get one of those keyboards that you wear like a guitar. They actually call it's actually called a keytar.
Yeah.
And I wanted to have a wall of like those keyboard amps, which were called Leslie's, where they would have the spinning speaker for like the vibrato if you were playing like a Hammond organ. So yeah, it was kind of like that. That was what I wanted, but then I was like, yeah, it was just too much to learn. And again, I didn't think I'd be good at it, so I picked up drums, and that I actually picked up pretty quick.
Yeah, Attacker would have been a much different band if that happened.
Yeah, with me on keyboards.
So in high school, was the band, you started hanging out with, was it called like Pegasus or something?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Those guys were my buddies. Who a couple of them, one or two of them, we were in the same. We were in the same grades together. A couple of the guys were younger, but they were like my inspiration to want to be a musician. Like those are the guys I used to hang out with them, go to their shows, and that's really was my inspiration to do. To get into being a musician. Really.
Yeah, and it sounds like it was kind of like a power metal glam kind of thing.
No,
Does
no,
it?
they were actually more like just a '70s hard rock band.
Oh,
And a lot of Van Halen influence. And the funny thing is, they had a keyboard player, and I used to ask him to borrow one of his extra keyboards when I wanted to be a keyboard player. So that's how that even tied in with the keyboard thing. But no, they were just more of just like a really cool hard rock band. I mean, they used to play anything from like when they were doing covers, they would do from like anything from Judas Priest up until to Leonard Skinner, all that stuff, Queen, just all the great hard rock and early metal stuff.
I
That's what
still,
they would do,
yeah.
and that kind of got me on that whole tip to want to do that, to get into the harder edge of it, which would be like when Judas Priest, Iron Maiden, all that stuff was hitting big.
I assume they were playing a lot of like Queen too and
Oh yeah,
whatnot.
no,
Yeah.
all that. Like I said, I couldn't even imagine. Like they did everything, Bad Company, all that stuff, all the '70s stuff.
Nice. Awesome. So how soon
Yep.
after becoming friends with them did Warlock form?
Well, again, I was friends with them in the '70s because we were all from the same town. Probably, like I said, I started playing drums in '82, and that band Warlock started in '83. That's
Oh,
when
wow.
that's when I put
Okay.
that band together. And I was in college at the time, and I met one of the guitar players he only played with us for like one show, and he actually was playing him and Pat Marinelli, who was one of the original Attacker guys. They were like a guitar team at the time. That's how that whole thing came, and we put the band together from that.
Yeah. And then what caused you guys to change the name?
That was because of the German band Warlock
Yeah.
with Doro Pesch. We were like, oh, there's already a band. Even though we didn't have a K on the end, it was still too close. So we just had to let that go. And at the time, we had the song Call on the Attacker. And that actually, the reason why we changed it to Attacker was our original bass player, Lou, who wasn't even in the band at the time, he was still in the band Hades. He said to us, hey, why don't you use the name the attacker from the song, because that's kind of like that could be like kind of like your theme song, and that's what we did.
Cool. So you
Yeah,
kind of touched on the band's demo a little bit. So how do you
right.
remember making that demo?
That was also like an inspiration from when I was in college and I met Lou Charlo, who was in Hades at the time. I had run into him, I guess at the I don't know if it was the registrar office or something, and he said, "Oh, I'm going to be quitting school soon. We're getting signed to Metal Blade, and we're going to go on tour." And I went back to my guys and I said, "Hey, we got to do a demo." And we immediately I booked some little studio, and that's how we did the demo. And incidentally, I think that was recorded, I think in January of '84.
Okay.
And we sent the demo out to like all the fanzines at the time. And I remember Metal Forces magazine in England, they did a review and they loved it. And they said, somebody better sign these guys up quick. Next thing you know, I get a letter in the mail from Metal Blade wanting to put, Call on the Attacker on one of the Metal Massacre 5 albums. So that's how that happened. Like super quick. It was like a matter
Wow.
of like 2 months or a couple of months we had a deal. Oh, we had the deal for that. And then once Metal Massacre came out, then we got a deal for the full album, which became Battle at Helm's Deep.
Got it. Okay. And the early days saw you guys for your first few gigs wearing like makeup and spandex, right?
Yeah, that
Um,
was Yeah, I had like red spandex with lace on the side. Yeah, it
What
was like
inspired this image?
that. I mean, that was the time. I mean, back then, all the cover bands back in those days were wearing spandex and white Capezio shoes, and you know that didn't last long. But that's what we did. Like the first, show or a couple of shows, maybe.
Yeah.
Once we changed over out of the cover thing, and when we got signed, that's when like that went away. We just went to the jeans and t-shirt look or whatever, or more regular look, you know.
Most bands go through that phase,
Yeah,
you know.
exactly. I mean,
Yeah.
that's what it was at that time. All the cover bands, it was spandex. Everybody had spandex on. So
Yeah, so how did Metal Blade treat you for the debut?
they treated us good. What happened with that was we were just a bunch of cocky, stupid kids that thought that they should be doing more for us and this and that, and that's why we wound up not working with them. Plus the fact that like 6 months in, Brian Slagle was telling us, "Hey, you guys ready to do another album?" We're like, "Do another album? We haven't even written another song yet. We're still basking in the glory of having an album out. We hadn't even gotten to that point yet." So I guess I don't know. Maybe some of the guys felt pressured, or whatever. But yeah, all in all, I've told people this many times in interviews, like whether it's on paper or whatever. The biggest mistake we made was leaving Metal Blade. We should have stayed there, even if it took us a while to get a record. Again, we were just a bunch of dumb kids, too cocky, and we would have been better off staying. It would have been better for us probably overall as a band. But we did also have issues in the band with members, so that kind of always put a crimp in things, having to change over, like with singers, having to get a different singer. There's other variables too. So
And usually it'll take maybe one lineup change to kill a band, but it's like you guys, I don't think anything's
oh
stopping
yeah,
you
I
at
mean
this
I
point.
mean we, I mean we, no, I mean we kept changing it, but and again, we only did it because we love to play. Obviously back then we had hopes. No, maybe we can make it somewhere. Now even when we reformed in 2000 after Jim Mooney had passed away, we did that really to do an album dedicated to him and also John Leone from the second album. That was all just to do it really for those guys, and we just play now because we love to play. That's it. It's not anything else but that, and that's why we can tolerate the lineup changes because we want to keep playing and having fun. So
Yeah, so that's, a tribute record then
it was
completely.
basically, yeah. And also after that record came out in 2003, we didn't find out until a few years later that our other guitar player Tom D'Amico from the Second Coming album, he had passed away in 2001. We had no idea. So here's the ironic thing with this band. The bass player who was on the Metal Massacre 5 with us, he was the guy that played on the demo and was on that. He had passed away too, like I guess I don't know how many years ago. Attacker has lost two guitar players, a bass player, and a singer, and I'm the only drummer, and I'm knocking on my head because my head's wood, and they basically got almost a full band except the drummer, and I ain't going nowhere.
Yeah, yeah. I
Like,
gotta see what Hell's Heroes. Stick around a little longer,
yeah,
please.
no. You're going to be going to that?
Yeah, yeah,
Oh, excellent. That's
yeah.
great. We'll get to meet in person then. Oh, awesome.
Hell yeah, man. I missed last year, and last year was fantastic. And this
Yeah,
this
yeah.
lineup is insane. So it's
It's
like, all
still,
right, I have
yeah,
to.
it's still a great lineup of bands. That's going to be fun. It's going to be our first time in Texas, so
Yeah, you
that's going to
guys
be
just do
cool.
festivals now, right?
Yeah, well, I mean, again, everybody's got jobs or whatever, family things you got to do. To going on a tour thing, unless you're offered like an arena tour, opening for somebody huge, and there's going to be a tour bus and a full road crew. I'm not getting in the van and killing myself and eating bologna on my hand. So no,
Unless you're torn with Priest, you're still.
exactly right. If you're gonna do something like that for me, and I just have to get on stage and play, but that loading your gear in, setting it up, playing the show, getting back in the van after loading it to drive to some other place, nah, we're too old for that.
Yeah, yeah.
Truthfully, you
Fair
see the
enough, man.
gray. You don't get this gray for nothing.
You've already done your time on the road,
Well, as much as we have. We never did as much as we wanted to. But again, that all goes back to lineup problems. Every time you get set back a little bit, you lose that time that you could have kept moving forward. So listen, we're blessed and lucky and very fortunate to even be doing what we're doing right now. You know what I mean? With all the stuff we had to go through with the band, and and even still being together at this point, we're just happy to do it. So festivals for us are the most bang for the buck and fun thing. We get to travel and have a great time, go home, and then whatever, get back to life.
Yeah, it's so interesting. It feels like shit went down between every record, but still there's
Oh,
such a great, consistently good discography within the band.
Something has always gone down.
Yeah.
No doubt about that.
Yeah.
But you know what? We survived. We're still here playing, having fun. The people that like us, the fan base we have, is still digging what we do. So we're happy. So
For sure. What was that? That makes me curious. What was the band's biggest tour in the band's career?
um, well, that's the thing, is we never really did a tour. The biggest thing we ever
Ever.
did was go. Yeah, no, the biggest thing we ever did was go to Europe for like 17 days. But that was only a couple of festivals and a handful of shows between the festivals, so it wasn't even a lot. We went there to maybe do like 4 shows at a clip or something like that. We missed all those opportunities back in the day. I mean, I remember back when the Metal Blade album was out, we were supposed to go down to the Southwest and do some tour with Omen when we were still with Metal Blade. But whatever happened with that, again, that was a member thing. Oh, I don't want to go on tour, and beat up my equipment. I just want to stay here and write records. That's the kind of shit we had to deal with. So, and that person, unfortunately, ultimately is no longer on the earth and had to go, had to leave the band at the time. But yeah, it's always something. It's always something going on that you have to, make decisions, and it sets you back a little bit.
Yeah, very, very interesting to hear, man.
Yeah,
And this the band's timeline is just so unique and interesting. Now now back to the Metal Blade Battle at Helm's Deep. Bands
right,
surprise me with when they tell me, budgets and studio time for their first record.
right.
How do you recall
Well,
like the amount of studio time you guys got?
we kind of got Metal Blade a little bit with that one because
Okay.
first of all, we actually did get a budget. We had $4,000, which is a lot back
A
then.
lot, yeah.
And then when and then we switched bass players right in the middle of the album. When we did the album, Jimmy Shulman was our bass player. He ultimately became Hades' bass player after Lou Charlo quit Hades and joined us. So we kind of swapped bass players, and we had to go back in, redo, re-record it, remix it. I think somehow we wind up spending like $12,000. And I guess Metal Blade was already so far in that they couldn't back out. So really, we were probably one of the few bands that actually, got a lot of money for that record to do it. And that's kind of how that happened. So yeah, we wound up getting all the money to record that, and I guess that kind of screwed Metal Blade in a sense, because I think they made the money back, because I think whatever, I remember getting statements, and and getting the statements up until we were getting them, they had sold like 10,000 records, so I'm sure they made the money back, for what their wholesale costs and all that stuff are. I mean,
Yeah.
wholesale, what they made per CD, even from distributors, was still better, but probably less than they wanted to make.
Interesting. Yeah. So you were talking about, not really touring, but how do you recall like navigating your local scene?
I mean, it was kind of cool. I mean, the local scene, we had some smaller local clubs, but we would play like Lemoore in Brooklyn. We had done shows opening up for Motorhead, Sabotage, Saxon, Overkill, bands like that, and it was, that's was really probably the main thing. Like, we ventured out a little bit, like into Connecticut. I remember one time we went up to New Hampshire with Fate's Warning back then, and we were supposed to play some university up there. We get all the way up there, and we get there, and they go, "Oh, we screwed up. This is a holiday. All the students went home." So we drove all the way up there for nothing. But they paid us. They paid us anyway. But we would do like as much as we can, like the tri-state area here and there. But we didn't get very far, because of, like I said, problems, people not wanting to go, not wanting to travel, and we just did the best we could. So got on as many opening shows for bigger bands as we could. and that was it. That's how really we did it.
Yeah, the constant struggle between bands and promoters, man. Like that's brutal.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Driving
No,
all the
well,
way up
that's
to New Hampshire.
yeah. And like,
Um,
hey, cool, we're gonna play, and like, yeah, everybody went home. If you guys could play if you want, but I'm like, to who? So
yeah,
we were
you
like,
can rehearse here.
yeah, we were like, out of hell with it.
So I just remembered I wanted to ask this. So on Disciple,
Yes.
you have there's a cowbell
Yes.
and it fits so perfectly in the song, but it caught me off guard the first time I heard it. So what's the origins of that?
Well,
What made you want to put that in?
probably because at the time, I remember like we were all into like the first Motley Crue album, and Tommy Lee would do some cowbell and live wire. I think
Yeah,
that's
yeah,
why the
yeah.
cowbell. So that was really why. And I guess I don't know. I guess for that part, I just overdubbed the cowbell. I was on the ride cymbal as well, I think, but just threw a cowbell in on top of that.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I love it, man. I always love cowbell in metal. I don't know why it fits so well, but it's very rare too.
Cowbells are cool, man. If
Yeah,
you again,
yeah.
you use sparingly.
Sparingly, very sparingly.
Yeah,
Um, so the second coming saw the band like really speeding up its sound. So was this another conscious decision or just like you were saying, a natural evolution?
that was because Lou Charlo, he wrote that whole album except for one riff and one song, and he wrote all the lyrics.
The
So
whole
again,
record.
the whole record. So that whereas Battle at Helm's Deep was Jim Mooney, Bob Mitchell, me, Pat Marinelli, like we all kind of chipped in, even with lyrically or even little musical ideas. That album was all 99.9% Lou. So that explains it's a different type of record, different writer.
Yeah. So did that pretty much inspire Jersey Dogs? Like, was that like,
Um,
it's too
and
fast to be an attacker. Let's just do our own thing. Or was that
no,
a completely
not
different project?
well, it was completely different because at the time when the second coming, it took us 3 years to get out because of member changes, and
Jesus.
obviously we left Metal Blade, went to a different label. That was at the time when thrash metal, everything was thrash. So now here we are. Yeah, we're speed metal, but we're still kind of more old school, and that stuff really wasn't happening at the time. So we kind of decided at that time to just put Attacker to bed, and we all were into heavier stuff anyway, and that's why we decided to do Jersey Dogs and do something a little heavier. That's how that came about.
Interesting. Yeah. And then you brought the band back for you were saying the tribute album Soul Taker.
Yeah,
Um,
that whole thing transpired at the wake for Jim Mooney. All of us were there,
wow. Okay.
even our old singer Bob Mitchell. But at the time, we weren't talking. And I remember Lou said, he said, "Let's do another album. Let's do an album and dedicate it to Jim." He said, but not have nothing to do with Mitchell at the time, that's what we agreed to. And I was trying to find singers, but ultimately, somehow Bob and I did wind up talking and said, let's put everything behind us, whatever. And I actually had done a demo in my house because I had a little 4-track record, a little, actually, no, 16-track recorder and a electronic drum set. We demoed the songs and I gave them to Bob to sing because I actually wrote most of the lyrics on Soul Taker because we didn't have a singer at the time. So I just took it upon myself. He came in, sang those songs in my house, and I had to convince Lou to get over not basically hating the guy. And we wound up, that's how he came back in and wound up doing the Soul Taker album and also stayed for the Unknown album as well. So
Yeah. What was it like writing attacker music again after like kind of a long period of time?
it was a little bit difficult because trying to capture something you did 25 or 30 years before
Yeah.
is kind of hard, but again, that's why I always felt that album was more like finding our feet again, finding our way with doing that stuff. Whereas the Unknown album, I think, was a little easier to do that.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, it's no secret when we were talking about this earlier, the amount of lineup changes and stuff, and how so many bands just cannot handle even one. What is your advice for bands, for them to keep going on and not completely fall apart in a lineup change? How does a band go through that properly?
Number one, whatever your band is, don't change drastically. If you had a guy with a high vocal range, don't go to a guy with a low vocal range. Try to at least keep the band in the same kind of vein, and just, if you really love what you do, keep it going, because the people, like, especially for bands like us that had, if you're a recording band and you have a certain fan base that liked what you did, they're going to still want it. They still would appreciate to hear you doing it, as long as, you're staying in the same kind of vein. So, if you're losing members, don't give up. Just take the time and find people that'll bring something to it, to what you've already done. And again, do it because you love it. That's really the bottom line. If you didn't like it, yeah, then just let it go. But if you enjoyed it, don't give up. There's somebody out there that probably likes the same style, can come join the band, fit in with the band, and have, continue to have a good time.
Yeah, very cool, man. And the band's seeing this kind of since Soul Taker. We get a new release every, couple of years, it seems.
Yeah, we
Um,
try.
yeah, yeah. So what after that, tribute record made you go on all right, let's keep putting out records and let's keep this going?
Well, that actually, it was going to Europe for the first time. After Soul Taker, we got invited to go to the Keep It True Festival, which was just their second edition, with Manila Road, Halloween from Detroit, Blitzkrieg from Germany, from England, Elixir, who, guys we became friends with. After going there, see, before we went there, we had no idea if anybody there would even remember us. We literally were like shitting our pants backstage before we went on, because it was a German band on before us and everybody's singing the lyrics and stuff. And we're like, holy shit, how are we going to follow this? You know? And it was 100% the complete opposite. When we played at the end of the night, when we got paid, the promoter Ali actually said, you guys had the biggest and best crowd response of the day, which blew us away. So if it wasn't for the fact that we were that Europe opened up for us, I don't know if we would have kept going just doing shows in the US, because it's still not the greatest thing. Even festivals here are good, but obviously Hell's Heroes will be it's a big fest for the US. So I think really the reason why we kept going was because of getting to go to Europe and seeing that there was still a market and people enjoyed what we did. So like, hey, let's keep doing it, you know?
Yeah, you guys are so good live too. I've seen some footage on YouTube and it's just
Oh, thank you.
incredible. Have you thought about at all putting out a live record at any point in the band's career?
I mean, we have, but again, you have to have the right live setting. I mean, technically on the EP that we did, there's two live songs from Greece, from the Up the Hammers
Fantastic.
festival. But other than that, it's a bigger undertaking, I guess, and obviously everybody's got to be firing on all cylinders. Sometimes live, things. If you're at the show, we can get away with a lot of shit that you wouldn't normally notice. But even when we watch, if somebody films something or we look back, go, oh yeah, don't put that one up on YouTube, because again, that's just the nature of live, and that's why a lot of live albums from bands really aren't live. They go back in and fix shit, you
Yeah,
know.
yeah. Kiss Alive is probably the best example.
Yeah, and also Judas Priest, Unleashed in the East.
Yes. Yeah.
They had said that something happened with the recording. Rob Halford stood somewhere in some room, and he sang that whole album to what was recorded in a room and did it in real time to make it like a live album. That wasn't none of that was his vocal, was the live performance. They just put the right amount of reverb or whatever delay on things and made it sound like it was there.
Insane. I guess it
Yep.
is kind of hard to get that right live sound, It's
You
it's
can, well,
probably more
yeah.
difficult than recording, like making a new record.
Oh, absolutely, because you have control over certain things, but things could go wrong, and again, it depends on how well the band performs. Because we're humans, we're not machines. Things are going to happen. So
Yeah, for sure. So in terms of like control, do you guys have like your own like home setup? Do you record stuff at home
well,
or
I
do
have
you rent
I have well,
studios?
if you notice my shirt, it actually says Band Mother
Oh, there you
Recording.
go. Yeah.
That's actually our studio now, and that was dedicated to my mom, who kind of was the band mother of the band and stuff. Always helped me out. Back when we started the band, I would say to her, Mom, I would leave her a note on the dresser. Mom, I need $500 for a PA. I'd come home and there's $500 on the dresser. So my mom was extremely supportive
Wow.
of the band, always. And I even took my mom to Europe. I took her to Holland one time when we did a festival, and we stayed in Amsterdam. And I took her to the last Keep It True we had done in 2008, before she had passed away. She came with that as well to kind of see, this is what all your money, got you. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like to see what it was. And but yeah, we have our own studio. I actually record bands in the studio. Besides having done the last record there, the God Particle was done. We did the whole thing right in our studio.
Cool. Awesome. Well, listen, man, I'm super excited to see you guys live at Hell's Heroes.
That's great. Like I said, it's cool that you're going to be there.
Yeah, very excited. Yeah, it's worth the flight. It's just there's so many of great bands, and there's so many bands that like didn't even know were still around that are on there.
Yeah, that's the cool thing about these fests. They dig up people that might not have otherwise had a chance to get out and do anything anymore. That
Yeah,
people would notice.
exactly, and to find like a totally new audience, you know what I
Yep,
mean?
absolutely.
So what's the best way for people to stay in touch and stay updated with everything Attacker?
Probably, I mean, you could go on Facebook or Instagram. That's the two spots. Like we used to have a website, but nobody even pays attention to websites anymore. In all honesty, like everybody looks at stupid shit on social media. So, you want to see what's going on, look on the Attacker Facebook page under Attacker, Facebook.com Attacker band. I think on Instagram it's Attacker Metal. That's all you need. We're out there enough, and if you need to see it, you'll see it there. Plus, if we're on a festival, you'll see the festival promoted somewhere or people promoting the festival. So, that's
Awesome.
probably that's all you really need. Everything is social media these days, unfortunately.
Well, Michael, thank you so much for taking the time to talk to me. Really
No, so
appreciate it,
it
man.
was my pleasure, man. Like I said, it was cool. It's cool that you're right up in Massachusetts, and I'm heading up there right now.
I know, right? Yeah, maybe we should have done this at the Big E.
Yeah, exactly, right. We could have did the interview at the Big E.
Yeah, yeah. I know if
That's,
bands play the Big E, right?
I don't know. I was there years ago when I was very, very young.
Me
I have
too.
some
Yeah.
yeah,
It's like a
have
farm festival, right?
yeah. There's a cousin of mine. Her aunt lives up somewhere near there, and I remember going. She said, "Oh yeah, we went when we were kids." And I don't even remember. It was just probably too young to even pay attention. It was just like going to any fair anywhere else to me. But
Yeah.
yeah, this will be my first time back in a long time. So
Awesome. Well, enjoy, man. And it was great talking to you. I'm Brandon Battick, and this is Disturbing the Priest.